Music of the Renaissance is particularly fascinating when heard in light of the 15th and 16th century ideas and events with which it interacted. This video surveys historical contexts for music of the Renaissance period and highlights developments in secular and sacred musics. Take some time to pause the video and pull up music examples from the composers and compositions discussed. See how many good recordings you can find on YouTube or on your favorite listening platform. The term Renaissance was first prominently used to describe the 15th and 16th centuries by a 19th century French historian. In calling this period the Renaissance, he was referring to a rebirth of interest in the language, ideas, and art of ancient Greece and Rome. At the core of Renaissance ideals was a move toward naturalism, realism, and perspective in visual art. This can be seen in the depiction of these two Renaissance men on your screen. By the 20th century, the intellectual movement emphasizing the human life and achievements of such men had become known as humanism. The Renaissance was a time of exploration, invention, and reformation. Explorers circled the globe. From the upper left-hand corner, you see Christopher Columbus, Amerigo Vespucci, Ferdinand Magellan, and Francisco Pizarro. In 1453, Johannes Gutenberg established the first movable type press. Scarcely 50 years later, Petrucci became the first prominent printer of music. In the early 16th century, the excommunicated Catholic monk Martin Luther translated the New Testament into German and launched the Protestant Reformation. Elsewhere in Europe, John Calvin and the Calvinists stripped their worship of what they perceived as the excesses of Catholicism. Their music was centered around monophonic renditions of the Psalms. In 1534, Henry VIII of England split with Rome over his divorce and founded the Church of England, which would start offering worship services in the English language. Some 30 years after that, the Catholic Church met at the Council of Trent. Catholic Counter-Reformation theologians sought to purge the Church of elaborate traditions and considered abolishing music from the Mass altogether. Legend has it that composer Palestrina wrote the Pope Marcellus Mass to prove that polyphonic music need not distract from the words of the Mass. Although only a legend, around this same time, Counter-Reformation churchmen did withdraw their most radical proposals to strip music from worship. Since that time, Palestrina's style has become the model for 16th century counterpoint. Renaissance musical style, with its conjunct melodies, steady tactus, and predominance of thirds, sixths, and triads, can already be heard in what was called the Continence Angloise, or English sound, of the music of early 15th century composer John Dunstable. His music was said to influence continental composers Dufay and Binchois. Both Dufay and Binchois, composers pictured on this slide, had ties to the Burgundian court. The Dukes of Burgundy showed off their great political power by hosting lavish gatherings and sponsoring the composition of songs, motets, and masses. In the Renaissance, music was heard in church, at court, and in merchant-class homes. The sons and daughters of wealthy merchants and royalty alike were educated to dance, play concert music, and look for text-music relationships as they sang popular song. The most prominent Renaissance composer was Josquin des Prez. Born in the Low Countries, he spent most of his life in France and Italy. For examples of Renaissance style, listen to his motet Ave Maria, and you can also listen to the English anthem Sing Joyfully by William Byrd. Both composers also wrote secular music. The increasingly homophonic textures and strophic forms of the French chanson led to the genre becoming very popular in the Renaissance. In Italy, madrigals were published by composers such as Arcadelt, Lorenzo, and Gesualdo. The harmonies and shifting textures and meters painted their texts of love. In the late 16th century, the madrigal crossed the Alps, and English madrigals were composed by William Byrd and others. John Dowland's slightly later but equally popular lute songs, such as Flow My Tears, initiated a new craze for homophonic textures of solo voice and accompaniment, textures that would come to dominate the early Baroque period. Recordings of both William Byrd's madrigal, as Vesta was descending Latmos Hill, and Dowland's Flow My Tears are freely available on the internet. Instrumental music became more widespread in the Renaissance as more musical instruments were manufactured. Recorders, viola da gambas, and other instruments played together in consorts and broken consorts. Sackbuts and cornets, like those depicted in Michael Pretorius's Catalogue of Music, were used in the balconies of the Basilica of San Marco in Venice as part of polychoral compositions of the late 16th century composer Giovanni Gabrieli. To get a taste of instrumental music of the time, listen to dances published by Pretorius, and listen to some music from Gabrieli's collection, the Sacre Symphonie. Then please proceed to the next videos to trace these late 16th century phenomenon into the Baroque period.